The next guy up, he always amazes me because I've heard him be so damn dramatic about just hanging sheetrock. Clem Starck, you're up on deck, my friend.
So it must be perfect. Perfect to be here. This is, I don't know, 17, 18 years, I guess, that I've been here at Fisher Poets. Always a real pleasure. So I'll begin 3 sea stories. This first one, simply called On a Freighter Leaving Newport. 37 degrees on the inclinometer. Crossing the bar, that old Victory ship rolled so far over on her side. The pilot, a portly man, climbing down a rope ladder to the launch that would take him ashore, looked like a crab scuttling backwards, a tiny figure on a huge teeter-totter. But the ship righted itself. The pilot leaped aboard his launch, and we proceeded south along the coast, 1,000 miles, Yaquina Bay to Port Hueneme, to top off our cargo before heading out again across open water to the war in Southeast Asia. So this is an entirely different ship. This is a story of a sailing vessel that I crewed on, the second of these sea stories. So this one is called Saga of the Goodwill, name of the ship, the Goodwill. Fore and aft rigged, a 2-masted schooner, overall length 161 feet, built in the 20s as a private yacht, largest fore and aft rigged sailing vessel in the world, we were told, in 1968. A group of us, as part of a lunatic scheme, had made an offer to purchase her. We knew next to nothing about sailing, but planned to make seamanship a kind of spiritual discipline. After a nearly disastrous trial voyage from Honolulu to San Francisco, we had her hauled out for inspection. It turned out that the steel hull was so badly rusted in places you could almost poke a screwdriver through it. So the deal was off. And 6 months later, when she went down with all hands in a storm off Ensenada, we were not aboard. So I was a merchant seaman for a time. And for a seaman, you know, there are really only 2 modes of existence. One is being at sea, and the other is anything else, which is called being on the beach. So that's the title of this next poem. But as well as that metaphorical meaning, it also, this poem refers to actually being on a beach. And there's mention in it of a song, and some of you know this song. It's by the great Canadian singer-songwriter Stan Rogers, a song called The Genie Sea. The Genie Sea, name of a boat. On the beach. I'll go to sea no more, is what I'm thinking, remembering the words of the song while listening to waves crash on the beach. I'm in a motel on the Oregon coast. It's midnight, full moon, January of my 66th year. The way the song goes, a man, his son, and a hired hand set out for the Grand Banks to fish for cod in a boat built by the man's father. What it was she struck, they never knew, but suddenly every seam poured water. I've been to sea. I have a son. And you could say my life is a boat built by my father. So, any of you been to sea or familiar with construction work, for example? You probably know what a snatch block is, but in case you don't, the reference is to a kind of block, think block and tackle, and a housing for a pulley or a set of pulleys. So this next poem is called Snatch Blocks, Curve Balls. You all know what a curveball is, both baseball and metaphorically. Snatch blocks, curve balls. When a worn snatch block in the rigging broke loose, it struck me square in the chest with such force it nearly knocked me overboard. A few inches higher, it would have done damage to my physiognomy. When my wife was diagnosed 4 years ago, it also caught me by surprise. But fortunately, it's not like I'm some rookie just up from the minors who can't handle a major league curveball. All will be well is the mantra I keep repeating. And if not well, then at least over. Like the Russians said, sure, life is tough, but fortunately short. Well, here's another sea story called On the Hook in Manila. You know, on the hook meaning at anchor. On the hook in Manila. Riding at anchor in Manila Bay after 10 days at sea, watching the moon rise over the city sparkling below. The four of us, a scruffy bunch, Mike the oiler, Jake, and Crazy Bob and I, are at the rail, midships, waiting for a launch to take us ashore. Although in no way could we be said to resemble the four celestial worthies, much less the equally venerable four perfected lords of Wu, the four of us gaze shoreward, half convinced that every bar girl on the waterfront will find us irresistible. So here's a little longer poem. This is basically the story of how I first went to sea. So it's called Looking for a Ship. I always wanted to go to sea. Melville and Conrad were two of my heroes. And at 19, cocky, having just dropped out of school, I set out to do it. By greasing the palm of a union official in Mobile, I managed to obtain seaman's papers from the Coast Guard. And I hitchhiked to New Orleans to start looking for a ship. Living was cheap there on Skid Row in 1958. $7 a week for a room not much larger than the bed it contained, a table and chair. For only a quarter, you could get a plate of rice and beans at Fred's Inn, a cup of chicory coffee for a nickel. Fred's Inn was where I learned to differentiate a tramp or a hobo from a bum, and where I met characters I'd only read about in books. It was a long way from the Ivy League. Every day I'd navigate the waterfront, scouting the docks, boarding every ship in sight, trying to hire on. But shipping was slow in the Gulf ports that winter. With so many seamen on the beach looking to ship out, I didn't stand a chance. So after a month or more, I finally gave up, packed my gear, and rode the freight trains west to California to see what would happen there. Not until 10 years later, after a marriage and a divorce, while another war in the Far East was heating up, did I feel again the urge to go to sea. I still had my papers. I knew the protocol. I signed on a freighter out of Long Beach for Japan, and for a couple of years, I was gone. Well, I'm going to finish this up with three new poems, short poems. Well, this first one is simply called Taters. That's taters, apostrophe S, not plural. Taters. Country music and bacon are on the menu at Taters Cafe, as well as a Denver, a Western, or a Florentine omelet. I go there sometimes when I'm feeling low. It's surprising what a 3-egg omelet with hash browns and whole wheat toast will do. So I live down in the Willamette Valley in Oregon. And I worked for many years in Corvallis. And from where I live, in order to get to Corvallis, there's about a 12-mile section of county road called Airlie Road, which I would drive every day on my way to and from work. And found myself once again, not too long ago, driving Airlie Road again, and I composed this little poem. It's called simply Some Passing Thoughts While Driving Airlie Road Again. A house, a barn, a grove of trees, clouds accumulating in the west. How many times did I see this and say these words as I drove Airlie Road each evening, headed home from work? Wife gone, children grown, retired now, but still in dreams I find myself out on a job site, nailing up batter boards, pulling a string line, putting in footings again. Everywhere now along Airlie Road, fields of ryegrass and tall fescue, even Christmas tree farms are being converted to filbert orchards. Trump and climate change notwithstanding, maybe there's a future in nuts. It's pretty amazing. There are filbert orchards going up everywhere. So here's another one in somewhat the same vein, and this final poem will wind this up. It's called Feeding the Birds. Undeterred by my presence on the veranda, a single goldfinch, bolder than the rest, swoops down and perches at a feeder. Feeding the birds is one of my pleasures, like cutting firewood, reading Chekhov, watching baseball or film noir, dozing on the couch in front of the wood stove, daydreaming, looking out at the birds. Why is it lately, with that jackass in the White House, and the planet in such a perilous state, sometimes these feel more like guilty pleasures, self-indulgences, fiddling while Rome burns? Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so who have we got here?
Chuck Harris.
Nancy Farron.
Kirsten Harris.
Okay, and are you guys a family?
We are and friend.
Oh, okay. And what brings you here?
We're here for the Fisher Poets gathering and just been loving it. Enjoying the people and all the different events that are going on. So it's been a great weekend. Plus the food in Astoria is pretty good.
All right, and is this your first year?
Yes, it is.
Is there any special highlight?
I think we like it all.
Yes, it's been a lot of fun, especially getting together with friends and being able to do things, new things together.
Any surprises about fishermen in general that you've learned?
The photographs in some of the galleries have really surprised me. I didn't realize some fish looked like that.
Oh, I'm curious now.
It was a monkfish.
Oh, okay. Well, what are you doing tonight?
A presentation on a new book about fins in this area. So we're going to go see that.
Great, and I don't know, did I ask you where you're from?
Seattle.
Okay, all three of you? All right. So and you came down specifically for this?
Yes, we did. So thank you for having it.
Oh, well, thank you for taking time. Enjoy.